So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to weld in this little rod. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Rebuild It. This week we're going to continue on trying to get everything square and gaps right all the way around the front of this thing. So I've just been measuring the distance between the center of this bumper and this pad here, and it turns out that this bumper cover is the one that's shifted over a little bit. It's not the hood, so I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so if you remember from last week, here's the problem that we've had. I haven't done anything since the last video. See, we have a little gap there, which is a little bit wider than what it's supposed to be, but that's close. And then the hood actually goes over the top of the bumper over here. And we've got this 1/4 inch, well, the hood is a 1/4 inch to the right of the bumper there, and a 1/4 inch too shy over here. And then our sides, which are way off, which we'll have to work about on that later. The first thing is to get the center right here. So I measured between the center of this hood right here to the outside of this crash pad that's behind there, and we've got a little about 4 1/8 inches the edge of that over here. Same spot over here we have 4 1/4. So that is most of our, the whole thing needs to shift this way, which is, it does. This will end up lining up really close right here. So let's forget about moving the hood for now and worry about trying to figure out how to move this bumper that direction. Alright, so what I just did was loosened up all the bolts on that. Remember that new piece that I bought? This plastic piece. The edge of it's right here that this bumper bolts to. Just loosened that up and all the bolts that hooked to it and slid the whole thing that direction just a little bit. And so now I've got a perfectly lined up headlight holder on both sides. Remember, we're just working on the center here. And so all this is kind of flexible now that I've got all that loose. So we can get this, I'll shut the hood all the rest of the way, and then we can get this gap just right on the front here. And once we get that right, then we'll come over here to the sides and mess with these. And that, man, that helped that a ton. Look at that. I can't believe that helped that much. That's almost lined up. All right, so I need to mark this thing exactly where it needs to be down here so that I can always get it back in the same spot when we're tightening all the stuff back up. Alright, so I've got that tightened back down, and that pulled that in real tight right there in the center. I still got the same gaps on both sides. So I think the hood needs to go towards the windshield a little bit because I still have a pretty good sized gap right here, so on both sides. So I'm gonna loosen the hood back up on the hinges and try to tap it forward. And I might have to loosen up the latches too in there so that they go forward with it. Just have to play with it and see what happens. Okay, so I've just got this fender loosely attached up here at the top so I can get the gap where I want it. It's just loose at the bottom. But that's about where I would want that gap. So I've got these tied up here at the top to hold that gap in place. And then I went ahead and took this bracket right here out of the way for the antifreeze and loosened up these bolts here and here and here and slid this latch back this way so that when I loosen those hinges over there and take those struts back off, I can slide this whole hood back and get this gap to line up right here. That's the plan. So I'm gonna go on the other side and get the latch over there loose, and so that I can start moving this stuff around with the hood shut. And another thing I noticed once I had the hood shut, okay, so push that in. We have this gap that's correct down there. I'm holding it in there with my foot. But look at this gap here. That is very out of whack. So, and we've got a tight gap here and a big one down here. So, and a big one right here. So somehow we've got to lower the front part of this hood down to get that down. And when I think that gets down close right there, it's going to lift this up and open this gap up right here, I think. Right in here, there's a hood stop. So I loosen this nut here, and I'm gonna raise the hood back up and then screw that hood stop down and see if it drops this down. So I've not tried this yet, but we'll see if that works.
Alright guys, it's time to pick another t-shirt contest winner. All you had to do to be entered in to win was just comment gaps down in the comment section below. This week we only had 2 people that commented gaps, so the odds of winning are 50-50. Let's go to our random number generator, and it is comment number 2. So starting from the bottom and doing by most recent, comment number 1, comment number 2, Pat413 commented gaps. Congratulations, you win the free t-shirt. Just send us an email and we'll get your address and get your shirt shipped out to you.
So that kind of put us in the right direction. It got that gap with the door really close. It still needs to go down here. But the problem is I'm all the way up against this. So I think what I've got to do is the skeleton that we put in here, I think needs to be dropped down, because if you remember, there was a big gap that was right here, and then we were straight here, and matter of fact, it was the same as that one right here on this side. Now that I've lowered that down, we've got about the same distance all the way across. I don't know, I'm just gonna have to keep on playing with it. This right here is still way out of whack. This is just the very monotonous, tedious part of this, is trying to get all these straight on every side. So just keep on playing with it, loosening stuff up, tightening it, and moving it around. All right, after another, I don't know, 30 or 45 minutes, I'm still working on gaps. So I've got, this one is pretty close. This one on this other side is perfect. Right here anyway. So I've got this fender just stuck on there. So you can see we're tight up here and loose down there. So this whole bracket that holds that needs to twist this way a little bit. And then this door is in. You can see it's like in below this rocker panel here, so this bottom part of the door needs to come out, and when it does that, it'll line up with this. This also needs to be tilted out this way a little bit, because it's set in probably an 1/8 inch right there. And then also noticed, I've been having problems with this little corner right here, so I took a measurement from the corner of that headlight hole to here is about 10 1/8 to the corner. To do this one, about 9 7/8. This is a quarter sticking out, so I think when this got hit, you can see a little bit of a dent right here. I think it pushed this in and pulled this out, so I need to manhandle that, push that back down in there some more, and just kind of twist it. Well, Finn's wanting to play some ball, but he's got the wrong part of the baseball game. Well, I'm still making progress a little bit at a time. I just about got this side the way I want it. I haven't really messed with that down there, but those gaps are good. I finally got this little piece over here, which was not fun. It's not perfect, but it's close. So remember, I'm gonna have to take the hood back off again anyway, and I'm just making sure I want to mark where all this stuff is so I can line it up easier when I put it back together. All right, it's the next day and we're getting ready to start on this side again, this corner. We are gonna start on it, aren't we? Okay, I have worked and worked and worked on this corner and I cannot get this straight. I'm thinking that the only explanation could be that during the wreck it has somehow warped this piece right here. I've got the outside edge flat with this reflector. I just stuck that in, and this corner is right, but this is just, and I've bent it in and out. It'll come in and out, but it won't. It needs to go down. So I'm going to stick the headlight back in there and see how that looks. But I think I'm going to have to do drastic measures, and I think I'm going to have to run a little line down this and get it in line with this, trim this off, and then fill in this area right here with some metal rod, and just to get this gap right. I hate to do that, but I've done it before on old cars and never have done it on anything new. But that might be the only option to make that right. Because if it's warped way back up in there, I mean, you can never get it to bend back straight. At least I can't. I'm not that talented. Okay, so I've got both these headlights back in. You can see how that one lines up really nice right here and right here. I mean, that's just the way it's supposed to look. We come over here to this one. It's good on this side. And then we have this issue I keep talking about. And it looks like it's, if you look at the headlight where this point meets the headlight, it doesn't look like it's off. I mean, it looks close to where it's supposed to be. I'm thinking about, instead of cutting it, trying to twist this, maybe it got hit in enough to twist this in a little bit. It's made a mark on the headlight right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's just like a little scratch where it's hit. This is not working. I've twisted it and it's not helping it any. It's just making it worse. I'm denting it up more. So I think what I'm going to do is I've marked kind of where I want the gap to be, like from this way forward. I think the gap is going to be okay from this way to this direction. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to weld in this little rod over to this mark, and then I'm going to come back and weld another one under it, probably over to about here, and then I'll grind it down and get my gap right, and then I'll come over here and I'll grind this down and get it right, and then weld up this seam again. Because I've messed with it, and I don't see any other way to do it because it's right everywhere else. So it's got to be warped from the accident. So you body guys might not like what I'm doing, but that's all I know to do it. Alright, so I've got that one piece of rod welded in just over to this mark that I made earlier. And so now I'm going to grind this down and get it smooth. Then I'll weld another piece in from this point over to this other mark, and then we'll grind it and get a good nice curve on it. Then we'll put our bumper back on, get it back down on there and see how close we are and what we need to do on this edge over here. So I've got that ground down good. You can see the edge of the rod right here. So it's gonna be nice and smooth once we get it. We'll have to do a little thin coat of filler over there to get in some of those pits. But so now I'm gonna weld another rod right here over to this piece, and then we'll make it nice and smooth. We'll go from here and make it go down all the way to an even curve. the best welder, but look at that bead right there. That's pretty doggone good, I must say. That's what I was going for. You can see where the first rod was here. Matter of fact, it's easier to see on the back side, which I haven't welded yet, but I will fill that in. So you can see top rod here, bottom rod here, nice and straight and smooth. On this side you can't see them at all because I ground them down. So I drew this line from this point here, which is right, down to this new point we've made here, and then I'll grind these down to make that smooth. But first I want to put that bumper cover back on, close that down, and then see if that's going to be close to where we want it before we start grinding. Right, so I just slapped the bumper back on real quick with like 5 screws, and here's what we have. See, we're really good in all the places that I think once that line is cut out, we should be right down where we need to be with a nice straight gap. So let's cut that. Then we'll come back up through here and make us a curve through here. Trim that off and then weld that edge back up. Put a little coat of filler on it, and we should be good. Alright, so there it is. Way better. So I still need to go in and put a little weld in about right here just to lower that down just a little bit, smooth it up. And I gotta go back in and weld this edge here. There's 2 layers there, so we're gonna weld that back together. But we got our angle and we got the right gap now. So alright, so here it is in the rough. The gap looks good. And I think it's going to be fine on here as soon as I get, like I need to add a little bit more weld right in here. Maybe a little bit right in here. And then just smooth it up. And you notice that the fender is off. I took that off a while ago so I can take it to Mike so we can make sure we have a good color match. He's gonna mix our paint for us, and then once I get this welded in here, we're gonna go back over on this side and clean up everything back behind there where we welded. So we'll weld in those 2 rods in the back and then just clean it up where it looks good. Well, I welded about 4 little beads there and I ran out of wire in my welder, so now I've got to go to the store. Okay, let's see if this place has this. Big wire, 0.024. Yep, there we go. This place has everything. They're always open whatever hours I need. Okay, so now that I've got all the welding done on this thing, I'm going to go ahead and do a little sanding and try to get the waves out of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and scuff up this paint, just like in this area right here with about 80 grit or so. And then use some filler just to fill in all the little pits and stuff from the welding and sand it down. It should be ready to start sanding the whole hood, which I'm probably not going to get to this episode, but at least we can get the filler done on that little, on the corner, and be ready for the next stage. you guys enjoyed this episode of Rebuild It. We got a lot of the tedious stuff done this week. You know, all the gap stuff, and this whole area right here just took forever because that's a lot of sanding, welding, grinding, and all that. So I got a little bit of low spot right here that I'm gonna fill in, and then once I finish sanding this down, it'll be time to start sanding the whole hood next week. And maybe we can get some sealer, primer, maybe even paint it on the next episode. Who knows? So we'll try that, but it's looking good. And just thanks for joining us this week. And if you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up and share us with your friends, and make sure to subscribe. See you next week.
And always remember, don't retire it if you can rebuild it. See you guys next week. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.